Welcome to Coffee with Carrie. Thanks for stopping on by. For today's episode, 10 ways you're going to know that there is no second date in your future with this one and what's going on with it. I have no idea what type of a title that leads to, but that's what it's about. It's about knowing on this first date that there is not going to be a second date. You can tell by these 10 things. That's what's on the agenda. Hope you'll stick around. Number one, I have clients, they are just so bad at avoiding this. I have to tell them again and again that you must find a poker face, because that look of disappointment when meeting someone for the first time is a dead giveaway that you're not interested and likely not going to be having a second date. So number one is noticing that there's a look of disappointment on their face when you meet perhaps for the first time from a dating app or being introduced by friends or a matchmaker, as in my situations. Mine are all blind dates, not even a picture exchanged when I'm matching people. Not having met a person in person is a very common thing these days. So if you see this person is looking in any way disappointed or not pleased to be making your acquaintance, that's a pretty good sign that there is no date number two coming your way. Number two, if you're good at reading body language, you can probably tell what's going on and whether there is a second date in your future. Look for signs of somebody being closed off from you, turned away, leaning back and away from you. Anything that's not towards you, leaning in towards you, being open towards you, reaching towards you, face towards you, and eyes wide open towards you. The opposite of those are a sign that this person is not truly engaged. All these signs of body language and being closed off are probably indicative of the fact that there will not be a second date. Number three, you're working your little tush off trying to keep a conversation going, and they're just constantly distracted by other people, other conversations, things that are going on in this location, restaurant, activity. The one thing that I've noticed that can really confuse this situation is if you're in a restaurant or bar and they have televisions, because whether somebody is truly engaged in what you're saying, really interested, really listening and wanting to hear what you say, some people just cannot tear their eyes away from a television in the room. And it's nothing against you. It's against the place for putting TVs in where people could possibly be dating. But short of a bunch of televisions luring their eyes from you, if they seem just generally distracted throughout the date, that's not a great sign, and I would not be surprised if there was no date number two. Number five, they don't seem to be able to maintain eye contact. They're not kind of laser focused. They're not maintaining that connection with you during the conversation. Their eyes are just off to the distance when they're talking to you. Some people just have a confidence issue with maintaining eye contact, but for a lot of people, this is just a sign that the person isn't really into this conversation. And that would be me just telling you a story, and while I'm telling you, I'm thinking about it and not bothering to check back in with you. You know, when I talk to you, I try to maintain eye contact with you and let you know that I'm trying to communicate with you and I'm hoping you're paying attention. But if I were looking off in the distance all the time, you would know that we were not going to have a date number two. Number six, their little pocket phone here is a distraction, and it's sitting right on the table. They're prone to pick it up. They see those notifications. Maybe they haven't even been polite enough to turn it face down during the date. Even when returning from the restroom, you may notice that in your absence, they picked up their telephone and were checking or fiddling with something there. So bored, perhaps, or disinterested that they needed a little excitement when we were out of the room and grabbed their telephone for that. Not a great sign, and probably a sign that there is no date number two. Number seven, they just take over the entire conversation. They are not letting you get a word in edgewise. They're not asking you for your opinion on this or giving you a chance to weigh in on your thoughts on this place that they're telling you about or that they've been or a movie they saw. They're just full steam ahead, all about them, their opinions, their stories. And the reason for that is that they've already decided they're not going to see you again. So they are just going to enjoy their own company, is what that comes down to. They're a person who enjoys talking, and they are going to do that with you or without you, and preferably without you, I would imagine. So if they've given up on asking you questions or even including you in the conversation, you're pretty much assured that this is the last date you're having. Number 8 is the opposite of that. And in these situations, the person is basically given up altogether. They're not telling you stories. They're not sharing anything about themselves, telling jokes, or responding pretty much at all. You're getting one-word answers. They're not asking questions. This typically happens a little later in the date. Most people can't pull off this level of rudeness early in the date. It's just too uncomfortable, but as time goes by, they are less and less interested and know that they're not going to see you again, and they just can't be bothered to really put themselves out there in that way. Some people can do that. It takes a special personality to be able to do this. I don't think I could do this to my dog. If they were constantly seeking my attention, I would be having a conversation with my dog. Especially people who aren't really extroverts anyway, and their natural tendency is to be quiet. They can really do a great job of pulling back to the very, very bare minimum. So if somebody seems to have given up, you feel that you are exhausted because you've been working so hard to keep this conversation going, don't be expecting that call to ask you out for date number 2. Number 9, I believe, is so common. This, I think, is the one that I most often hear from my clients when a date has gone off track and there's not going to be a second, is that this person will suddenly have an early morning tomorrow. They will suddenly have to leave early, or they have a work project they have to work on, or they forgot to mention it, but they only have a babysitter till this hour. For some reason, now have a deadline as to when they have to leave, and it's earlier than you would have guessed or anticipated or even had planned on originally. I guess sometimes people will come up with an excuse to have somebody call them or one of those things worked out in case of dates that aren't going as expected or as they had hoped. But a lot of times it's just, oh, I thought I told you I have a project due in the morning. I need to be home by 10 o'clock, or I need to get to bed early so I'm well rested for whatever's going on tomorrow. If their exit is a surprise to you, I would not be expecting that phone call. And then number 10, but I also have a bonus, is somehow you part ways and they've never asked you for your phone number. And they didn't have it to begin with. It was perhaps an online situation or an introduction by friends or a matchmaker. And they should be asking for your phone number to subsequently reach out to you for date number 2, and they forget or neglect to do so. Good sign that they weren't interested in having your number for that next get together because there isn't going to be one. Bonus tip. This one, my favorite. They tell you. They say to you, it was really nice to meet you. I had a really nice time, but I don't think we're a romantic match or that this is going to be a love connection for us. But I really had a nice time and I wish you all the best. Thank you. Yay, job well done. There's no second date, but this person was a grown-up. They were honest about it. They were able to be forthcoming and not have you waiting around for a phone call that's never going to come. They could just respect you enough to be honest and treat you the way that hopefully I would imagine they would want to be treated. If you're the person who knows that you don't want another date with this person, I recommend you do that as well. It's a really kind act to not keep someone waiting for that answer, but give it to them in a very polite manner and let them know that you seem fantastic. I enjoyed your company, but there's probably not going to be a date number 2 because there just wasn't a feeling of romantic potential between the two of you. And you can share that with somebody because it's not insulting. Much of the time, two people meet and it is not a romantic connection. More often than not, while some of these situations we've enumerated are more well-mannered than others, I just remind you that it's perfectly fine if somebody doesn't want a second date with us. We are not for everybody. We're not everybody's cup of coffee. Not everybody's going to like us in the very same way that we don't feel romantic or want to spend time with every person we meet as well. So all perfectly acceptable. It's just nice when it can be done in a nice manner that we can look back on it and think it was a positive experience, or that we did the right thing by letting them know with the best intentions. All right, I hope you found that interesting or helpful. Please hit that subscribe button before you take off. There's a big percentage of people who watch but never hit that button. If you would do that, I would be so grateful, and I'll look forward to seeing you back here again soon. Until then, have a good one. Even if you are coming back from the restroom, you'll notice that they will have picked it up in your absence. Absence? What? Much of the time,